So, like many of the founders that I speak with every day, you probably think that scaling to seven figures to $1 million is actually going to require you to have a big team with a lot of expertise and a complicated back end tech stack. It's not true. I've actually scaled multiple multi-million dollar businesses with less than five people in a very simplistic tech stack on the back end that doesn't require you to spend more time actually working in the business. I'm here to tell you that you don't have to have a ton of people with a ton of expertise, which equates to a very high payroll. You don't even have to have a lot of people as a whole, and you certainly don't have to have a complicated tech stack. With the right foundation, you can actually scale your business to $1 million and create a lot of additional freedom for yourself. Hey guys, my name is Christy Cox, and in my second business, I actually scaled to $5 million in less than 3 years with a team of less than five people and not a complicated tech stack. I've also built a almost $10 million business using largely offshore employees to do a large amount of the labor. And I've spent the last 15 years helping others to scale their business in a very similar way. It was the scaling of those businesses that actually allowed me and my family the freedom to actually now tour around the country in our RV, which we've now been doing for a little over a year and a half. Look, I'm here to tell you that the cleanest teams or the cleanest businesses, they're not actually built with big, complicated teams. The cleanest ones are actually the clearest ones, where the founder's super clear in what it is that they're building and they lay a solid foundation for what that vision looks like for the future. So by the end of this video, I want to give you the ability to understand what it means to scale your business leanly and what that means for you as a founder, because I promise it does not mean that you're going to actually have to work more hours. I want to talk about the complexities that actually kill your $1 million business and erode your margins so that you don't have the cash flow to support yourself or your family as you need. And I want to talk about the pillars that are going to replace unnecessary payroll that, again, kills your time and your margins. Now, the very first step in all of this is that you have to define your $1 million plus destinations. So that includes your vision for what it is that you're trying to build, your ideal role and how you fit into all of this, the client experience that you're going to come to be known for, and it includes your target margins and metrics that you need to hit in order to be successful in that build. You know, my family and I, we just came from a visit to the Kennedy Space Center, and there was nothing more evident to me by the end of that visit than the fact that if you can define success for your team, they will move mountains for you. They will absolutely help you to realize that vision that you've set. But if you aren't crystal clear in what it is that you are wanting to build and create, then they can't possibly know what their role is going to look like in any of that. And that's when your team is going to come with you with constant questions, when you're going to feel the need to micromanage every single thing that they are doing, when they are not going to understand what it is that you expect of them. That's when they become the people that are just completing a task list at the end of the day. Hey guys, look, if any of this resonates with you, then good news. I am hosting a 2-day workshop here in March between March 25th and 26th to show you how to lay the foundation for your business so that you can scale leanly and without having to be the micromanager or involved in every single thing that goes on in your business. So if you want to learn how I scaled my businesses in the past to 5 million or more with less than 5 employees, join me for this workshop. This is not a webinar. This is a hands-on event where we're going to actually get down in the weeds and help you lay the foundation to build the business that you want for the future. Step number 2, you've got to define outcomes, not just the activities that you want your team to perform. Look, most founders, especially in the beginning stages, they assign out tasks and activities that they want their team to handle for them. So it looks like clear my inbox, manage this one thing, fix that other thing. In activities, they create task managers. What you want to create from your team is ownership over certain areas of your business. And that looks like you're assigning out key outcomes that they have ownership from. Outcomes will create decision makers. Look, once you sign out full outcomes that you want someone to own, so instead of saying, hey, manage these leads, you say increase the qualified leads by 15% this quarter. Once you grant them permission to move in the way that works best for them and you give them ownership over that with a clear, measurable metric, they will start to know what it is that they own. They will start to know what good looks like to you. So they start to understand your standards and expectations, and they'll start to move without asking permission to do every single thing that they want in order to achieve that goal. This is how you start to free up your time as founder and start to become the CEO of your business. This is how you start to actually make things happen by having less people. Step number 3, you've got to set up and align your tools in a way that gives you visibility into everything that happens in your business without having to step in and ask your team questions on a constant basis. Look, execution has to live in your systems. And when I start with most of my clients, I actually only have a few that I recommend on the back end. I don't recommend a complicated tech stack, especially in the beginning stages. And I would say even up to and around $10 million. But these things can't live in your head. You've got to have a way to get them out. The right tools are going to create visibility for you as the founder and visibility for your team as the ones who are going to execute on the strategic plans that you're laying. They create agreements by which your team can operate. So you know when things are due and how they're going to be done. And there's no ambiguity standing in the way of your team executing. They create clear deadlines so that everybody knows when things must be done by. And they create accountability for your team. When your team knows what they're responsible for, they're not going to ask you all the questions about, hey, am I supposed to be doing this thing that you said that we were going to do together? Now that eliminates the possibility of you having to ask a ton of questions, and it eliminates your team from having to ask you a ton of questions. That frees up a lot of time on both ends so that together, all of you can move the needle on your business. Now, the 4th step in all of this is you've got to redesign your one-on-ones around outcomes. You've got to have it be a more effective space for you and your team to actually meet. If you are using your one-on-one times to just run through a list of tasks that have already been completed or that you expect to be completed in the next week, that is a complete waste of time. That is what your task management and your project management software are actually for. So instead, in your one-on-ones, you should be using that time to discuss the outcomes that are going to move the needle forward on your business. You should be using that time to discuss what good looks like. What would it look like for them to be successful in fully completing the outcome that you've assigned to them? You've got to talk about what's working and what's not. And you've got to use that space to remove any constraints that they may have on their side from moving forward and completing everything that you have talked about. Look, a lot of times those constraints look like they're just not feeling comfortable yet with making decisions. You've got to clear that from them. You've got to make sure that they fully understand that you are actually giving them permission to move forward. This is where you'll start to build autonomy in your team. And in order to get to a place where you do have a $5 million company operating with just 5 people or less, your team has to be able to perform autonomously with purpose while developing mastery in all of the skills that they have. Now, item number 5 here is to require ideas, not questions. You've got to train your team in how to think. So here's a really simple rule by which you can operate and lead your team by. When your team comes to you with any sort of problem or issue that has come up for them, have them also bring along 3 ideas that they have to actually solve it. This starts to train them to think about the solution rather than just the issue at hand. Your role as the leader is not to supply all of the answers. It's to train your team in how to think and solve problems on their own. So anytime that they feel like something has come up or gotten in their way, make sure that they're also bringing along some ideas around how they can solve that problem for you so that you can have some open discussions. As you start to have these discussions, they're going to start to understand the ways in which your brain operates, and that's going to build more trust for you in the future to allow them to just move on their own. Step number 6, define what comes to you and what doesn't. You don't want your team constantly pinging you in Slack. When they do that, you don't have time to be in the creative space that is needed to really push the business forward. Also, it actually creates a lot of delays in the things that you're going to progress. So you want your team to understand the things that you want them to bring to you and the things that you absolutely don't. Make sure you are crystal clear on that. Anything that is comprised of a legal risk that exposes you to certain major financial risks, or that requires a strategic pivot from anything that you have defined as what you're trying to achieve in your business, those need to come to you. But every single small improvement, minor question, minor client issue that comes up, that doesn't need to come to you. Make sure that your team is clear in the fact that you're giving them permission to operate on their own and answer those. Those are things that you can easily rectify if something does happen to go wrong. So make sure your team's clear on the things that do and do not come to you. Now, you knew this was going to come up at some time. Yes, number 7 is about AI. But I'm going to tell you right now that in any of the previous businesses I have built for myself or my clients up until the last couple of years, like the last 2 years, we didn't have access to AI. But now that people do have access to this important technology, you can actually build $1 million plus business with far less than 5 employees. But your team has to be able to know how to use it. I don't think that AI is currently in the place where it can replace a ton of the structure already in your business unless you have the tools and resources to properly train your team. But what it can do is it can help your team to conduct their own research, to gain their own clarity without having to bring you into that conversation. It can be used to help support client communication, to build out your SOPs, to answer internal questions. It can be used to reduce repetitive load, to build spreadsheets, and to do things that have formerly required a lot of human touch points without a lot of knowledge and expertise. AI can really help to multiply your leverage. And so that headcount of 5 at 5 million could become far less for you if you're using it correctly and if you help to train your team to know what you will accept as the appropriate use of the technology moving forward. Look, lean scale and the ability to operate without a bloated payroll is extremely important when you are at the 6 or 7 figure stage of your business. I mean, it's actually extremely important at any stage of your business. And this all starts with clarity, communication, and the right structural breakdown or foundation to your business so that you and your team can both perform and operate autonomously and that you're all rowing the boat in the same direction to achieve the overall vision for the company. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, although I think those of us as humans, we frequently do. Look, if any of this resonates for you or you want to learn a little more, I do lead a free training on this every single month. The topics do vary from time to time, but I highly encourage you to join me in any of those free trainings where I will give you a behind the scenes look at everything that I have done over the past 15 years to help other founders just like you grow your business to multiple 7 figures with fewer than 5 employees.